Hi, this is Fred Everything. In this next episode of the Sequential Synth tip, I want to show you how to make great bass sound using the new Prophet-5 Rev 4.
Prophet-5, I'm going to start with a basic preset. The way to do this is by pressing record and preset at the same time. So what you get is a one oscillator saw wave. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to detune the first oscillator by an octave. So just so I have a little bit more workaround in the low end. If I want to do like something like maybe a little bit more typical, like in a lot of house music and deep house music, I would start with a square wave on the oscillator A. So that sounds like this. I'm gonna start working a little bit with the filter, but the most important thing in this case would be the filter envelope, and I'll show you exactly how I do this. So first of all, I'm going to go ahead with the cutoff and see where I want it to sit a little bit in the mix. So maybe a little bit like this, but I'm going to apply some envelope amounts. So that's going to raise the level of the cutoff. But what I'm going to do then is I'm going to use the envelope filter to shape the sound so it's only bright at the beginning. So I'm going to take the sustain completely down and work with the decay a little bit. So what I want to hear is just that sort of bright sound at the beginning, and after this, just going back to being muted a little bit. Maybe adding a little bit of resonance, but not too much, because you're going to get some bass frequency are going to be taken out. So now I'm going to play with the envelope in general, the general envelope, and with the release of the general envelope and of the filter envelope, to give it just a little bit of release, but not too much. And now, if I want to add a little bit of a layer of sub, like the Prophet-5 doesn't have a sub-oscillator, but there's another way around where you can use the triangle to create something a little similar. So on the oscillator B, let me show you how that works. So I'll just get this on. So if we isolate oscillator B, so you hear the triangle sound, I'm going to take it one octave down. So you can hear it's really low. So it just kind of like gives you that little extra rumble at the bottom. And then you can just go back and just shape the sound a little bit how you want with the filter and the filter envelope. So. And another thing I like to do as well is using a little velocity on the filter. So you can make the sound a little bit more expressive. So let's see what it sounds like. And now let's make something more of a bright bass sound. So I'm going to try again with the basic preset, record and preset. So we're back. And now we're going to start with the saw wave. Once again, I'm just going to detune it just for to be able to access more of the low register. So I'm going back to C0. So I'm going to apply the similar technique here. So, but I'm going to start just with the saw. I'm going to go and play with the filter a little bit. And the filter envelope, I'm going to turn it up completely. And work with the sustain and the decay. And once again, just add a little bit of release. When you add the release on the VCA, you have to add a little bit also on the filter if you want the filter envelope to also follow the same release. And another thing that can be nice to experiment with is using the attack in the filter section to get some more of a brassy kind of sound. So another thing that's important, to do when you're having a bass sound, if you want the notes to cut, you just use the unison. But you got to make sure that the unison is, you can go all the way up to 5 notes, but you got to make sure that it stays on one note so the voice don't stack. So that way, by adding a little glide as well, you can have these kind of things. Gonna go back down with the attack. And now, also what's nice is that, you know, by using another oscillator, let's do a little square. And this one, I'm gonna keep it at the same frequency that it is, so which means it's gonna be an octave up. And I'm just gonna mix a little bit, play with the filter. And then, you know, and so on, you can go on and add any other waveform. And then if you go back down to the same C0 as the other one, same frequency as the other one. Now you're going to hear this sort of phasing sound. And one thing that's nice to do as well with bass sounds is just detune slightly the second oscillator by using the fine and see what it sounds like. You're going to get a little bit of that chorusy effect. And then to hear it even more, just, you know, bring up the sustain in the filter envelope. And then you get a little bit more of that sort of like drum and bass kind of bass line. And once again, using the filter on the velocity, you can get some nice movement. And also always using the glide for effect, especially when you go from one octave to another. Another trick I always love to do is to make like a sound like a fifth, so it's gonna be a bass but with an interval. So in order to do that, you're gonna go on oscillator B and adjust the frequency to a fifth up, in this case a G. So because the other one's on a C, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's a G. So what you're gonna hear here is kind of like a 2-note chord, if you want. And once again, this kind of sound really good with a little bit of attack in the filter envelope.
And so on. You can experiment with these techniques to get great bass sounds with the Prophet-5 Rev 4. I encourage you to take advantage of the great filter envelope and mixing and matching oscillators, as well as playing with different octaves and interval. Here's a track I did exclusively with the brand new Prophet-5 Rev 4.